Peter, did you call the venue for the Andersons' rehearsal dinner? Yes, it's booked. Good. Terry and Janet, you need to figure out the layout of the Williams wedding ceremony. She left behind a long list of who can't sit next to who. You got it. And Lucy, how are we keeping up with the budget? So far, so good. Great. It's only 12. Wait a minute, it's 12. Wasn't I supposed to head out for the Phillips photo shoot? Darn, I'm late. Russell, calm down. That's tomorrow. Russell was a wedding planner in Dahlonega, Georgia. Dahlonega was a small town, but it was a great place where many visited for things like shooting films, hosting events by the scenic mountains and vineyards. So Russell's business did quite well. As Russell sorted through his files with his assistant, another customer walked through the door. Both Russell and Lucy were overawed seeing this nearly 8 feet tall, big, broad, brute man tower over the reception desk. May we help you? Yes, hello. My name is Bret Wilson. I'm getting married soon, the man chuckled. But even his deep laughter was quite frightening. I'd like to hire you to plan the event. Yes, of course. Why don't you sit down? Let me show you our packages. We have the best rates in Dahlonega. I've heard. People say the service is good. I just want my wedding to be perfect. Russell worked with the man to arrange a rough draft of his budget and what needed to fit in that budget, from venues, caterers, suppliers, photographers, florists, etc. So how much do you charge? Well, from the list that we've put together, our services will amount to $1,000. $1,000? That's... all right, thank you. I was a little stressed out, but with your help, now I finally feel like everything's going to work out. No worries, that's what we're here to do. As the man left the office, Russell and the rest of the team stared at him, walked to his car, struggled to get inside, and drive off. Was I hallucinating or did I just see a giant walk in? He looks like King Kong, man. Yeah, like he was having a tea party sitting on that chair. Are you sure he's a man or was he something else? Oh, he's a man, all right. I'm just scratching my head wondering who would agree to marry him. Everyone at the office laughed about their unusual customer. Until the next morning, they were dumbfounded again, when Bret returned with his fiancée. Hello, I'm Monica. Bret and I are getting married. He came here yesterday and discussed the plans, right? Yes, he did. The three sat down, and as Bret sat there smiling at his wife, Russell sat opposite to them, noting down all Monica's plans as he stared at her, bewildered out of his mind. He couldn't help but ask, if you wouldn't mind me asking, where did you two meet? What's the love story? Oh, we get that a lot. We met at the hospital. I'm a doctor. It was one morning that Bret came in with a young girl that had injured her knee in a bicycle accident. Bret was her hero, and he's been mine ever since. I've never met such a kind-hearted soul like his. He's so gentle, calm, and caring, the soulmate I've been searching for. Russell nodded his head, soaking in the moment. Enough of the praise, Monica, you're embarrassing me. After discussing all their plans for the wedding, the couple left the office together. The team once again stared at the giant with his half-sized fiancée drive off in the car. She is the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. She wasn't that great, but the guy isn't that bad. Her hair, her face, her body, it's like perfection. Yeah, I've seen better. She's marrying a gentle giant. Oh please, did you see her? What is a goddess like her doing with an ape like him? This is Beauty and the Beast, but he's not even rich. Despite the financial limitations, Bret did manage to afford a decent venue, though the guest list amounted to only 50 people. Russell and his team did their magic, and in no time the place was ready for the big day. Bret slipped on the ring, and everyone clapped in happiness and joy. while Russel and his team wiped their sweat in relief everything went fine. Next came the night of the wedding reception. The guests were staying at the hotel at the venue, while the party was being hosted in the ballroom. Everyone was enjoying themselves. The caterers were making quite the tip serving drinks and beverages, especially from Bret. He was nearly double the size as everyone else, and he also drank double or triple the amount, but it seemed that he had overdone it that night. "Bret, it's really late. You don't think you've had enough for the night?" "What? What are you talking about? Tonight we're going to party." "Well, I think I've had enough. I'm going upstairs, and when you've come to your senses you can come too, unless the night is over before that." While Bret was half out of his mind still partying with his friends, Monica returned to her room upset on the night of her wedding. It wasn't until near midnight that Bret became sober. He was thundered seeing the time. He gulped down some coffee, shook it off, and hurried upstairs to meet Monica. The next morning, all the guests hurried out hearing the police. The bride was found murdered in her room, while Bret was found floating in the lake behind the hotel. The police immediately secured the crime scene and began their investigation. However, the case was soon closed when they discovered the truth behind the unfortunate night. "We've questioned everyone present last night, and we've come to the conclusion that Bret was overly intoxicated at the party. The couple had a disagreement when Monica returned to her room. Later that night, when Bret went upstairs, the two had another argument. Some of the hotel workers have reported hearing the woman shout. Perhaps that was when Bret had hit her with the blunt object, causing a fatal injury to her head. Then when he returned to his senses, realizing what he did, he went out to the lake and took his own life." Everything was going fine. No one expected this happy wedding to end like this. Not just friends and family, but Russel and his team too were devastated. They were such a happy couple. "I'm having a hard time believing this. This is so tragic. I'm never going to forget this wedding. Let's keep the office closed for a few days. In mourning, this wedding has been a lot." Russel decided to take a break for a week or so. Whatever had happened at the wedding had him shaken. He couldn't forget the dread he felt when the hotel workers knocked on his door and escorted him to see the lifeless body of the couple that morning. The lake water stained in red, the wedding dress torn. Those flashing memories haunted him. Russel needed to get things off his mind. He was out till late in the evening. Thunder rumbled in the air, hinting the coming of a storm. The streets were near empty as Russel sat down at the bus stand, when he suddenly noticed a man across the street. Bret staring directly at him. He blinked his eyes before he got up nervously. Bret was no more. Then, what was this? Russel picked up his bags and rushed to get a cab back home. He couldn't understand what he saw. But it wasn't long before Russel saw Bret again, standing tall in the midst of a crowd at the marketplace. All alone, far out in the field. When Russel was sitting at the park, Russel saw him everywhere he went. What was going on? Was this Bret's spirit? Was he being haunted? Russel noticed that whenever he saw Bret, it seemed like the man wanted to tell him something, approach him. But Russel was freaked out. He barely managed to escape each time. Was Russel going mad, hallucinating, or was this really happening to him? For the next couple of days, he decided to stop going out. He feared encountering this ghostly figure again. He was so paranoid that he even looked up the obituary and got information about Bret Wilson's funeral. He couldn't tell anyone what he was going through. No one would believe him. The only moments of relief Russel felt was in the safety of his home, but he knew he couldn't lock himself forever. When he received a call from a client who had left behind some paperwork at the office, Russel had to go get the errand done. He quickly dropped by the office, picked up the files, handed it to his client, and returned on his way back home. The skies began to rumble as Russel walked down the lonely road. The sooner he got home, the better. and this route was the fastest. But it wasn't before long that the rain started to pour. Russel quickly paced down the road by the forest, when he suddenly saw something in the corner of his eye. He turned around frozen to see Bret just a distance away from him. As the giant approached him, Russel fell back, trembling in fear as the spook towered high over him. His heart began to race as he crawled back on the wet ground. It felt like his heart would leap out of his chest. There was no one around here, no one who could hear his cries. He didn't have a choice. Russel held his hands and began to plead. "Forgive me. Please, forgive me. It was me. I drugged you that night. I tried to take advantage of your wife, but I didn't mean to take her life. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Russel had his eyes on Monica the day she walked into the office. He thought the wedding wouldn't go through, but when it did, Russel was a bit disappointed. The night of the reception party, he intentionally drugged Bret, and on the right opportunity, went to check up on the beauty. "You know, you remind me of Belle. You're a princess, but you're marrying a beast." "Excuse me? Don't talk about my husband like that. You can leave." "Sweetheart, if I was just to leave, I wouldn't have come here in the first place. Hasn't anyone told you you could do so much better?" "What are you doing? I'll call the police on you. Don't you dare touch me." In the heat of the moment, when Monica tried to retaliate, Russel had given her a fatal blow, not wanting her to scream, and fled. And when the groom returned to see his lifeless bride, he couldn't take the grief. He wouldn't be able to live without her, with this memory, and so he took his own life. "No, no, please!" As the thunder roared in the air, Russel begged in front of the spirit, his tears washing away by the rain. Bret stooped down and picked Russel up by the collar. "So it was you then," he grunted. "What? You're not a ghost? Then who are you?" Rhett, Bret's twin brother who lived abroad. He wasn't able to make it to the wedding. However, when he heard of the couple's strange demise, he was heartbroken, but he knew there had to be something behind it. And to know the truth, he traveled here and began to search for Russel, their wedding planner. He had to know something. Since the office was closed, Rhett began searching for Russel, but he wasn't able to approach him. Russel nervously went off whenever he saw him. But he never expected to discover this. "You won't get away after what you did to my brother." When Russel failed to return to work, his employees called the police, who discovered the remains of Russel in a horrible condition on a road by the forest. An expression of horror covered his lifeless face. Who could have done this? This doesn't look like something a man would be capable of. The way his neck has been snapped, it would have required an immense amount of strength, at least 5 people. But there's no other signs of injury, and this wasn't an animal attack either. In the middle of this lonely road, by the forest, look at his face. He looks like he saw a ghost. You think it was a ghost? Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.